Hey everyone, good evening. You're very welcome to this week's episode of Parlay with Padre podcast. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and the notifications bell so you don't miss any future updates and videos. This week, I am delighted to be joined by an extremely special guest. He's been the voice of Anfield since 1971, George Sephton. In this time, he has seen the club win 6 European Cups, 11 league titles, 6 FA Cups, 8 League Cups, 3 Europa League titles, and the FIFA World Club Cup last year. So there's quite a list of honours there and a lot of trophies and a lot of memories to talk about, which we're going to get stuck into this evening. George, thanks very much for coming on the show this evening. It's a pleasure to speak to you, and it's great to put a face to the voice as well, because I'm very familiar with your voice from watching the Liverpool matches on TV over the years. So it's been great to, in recent months, as you promote your new book and seeing more coverage of it in the media. So it's been great to put a face to the voice.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's a lot of people say it's nice to put the face to the voice. Then they see the face and think I should have stuck to the voice, but never mind.
So how have you been lately?
I'm busy. I'm at an age now where I should be sitting at home all day watching daytime TV and reading the papers, but because of the book coming out, I've been really busy, and I've tried to arrange my diary so that after I've spoken to you, I'll have very little to do for a couple of weeks. I can try and relax and watch the Euros. How relaxed I'll be will depend on how far England gets. You know, obviously it's nice. If England are doing well, you've got something to cheer them on for. But if England aren't doing well, there's always some good games.
Yeah, it's like real feel-good factors returning to the world, and they're like, you know, more people are getting the vaccine, crowds are beginning to appear again, and it's great. Before we start, we're just going to do our usual cheer as we do on the program, fireside chat. So you're on the LFC Stillwater.
Yeah, the hard stuff.
I have the Klopp mug there. I know you're a big fan of Jurgen, so cheers and good health, George. Here's to another 50 years on the Anfield PA.
The prospect of another 50 years fills me with horror. I'm losing my marbles now. I certainly won't have my marbles in 10 or 20 years. I'll be lucky if I got anything going in 10 years, to be honest, but keep plowing away.
It's brilliant to see you in such, you know, looking so well, sounding so well as well, and you know, and hopefully we'll have more days with you at Anfield in future, and hopefully you'll be there when the capacity goes up to 61,000 as well. It'd be great for you to witness that. It'll have come a long way since. Well, I'd imagine when you first went, or when you first started going to Anfield, the crowd was around 60,000 anyway, pre health and safety. Which I suppose
when I first started going to Anfield as a fan, I'm not sure they actually had a crowd limit. I know it wasn't long after that when they started building, clever gates to get in. If you see what I mean, if they'd have X number of gates around the stadium, and each one was allowed so many hundred people in, and when that gate had its allocation, they just closed it, and all in all, they eventually got a reasonable number in it. And obviously, the stands then were all ticketed, so they knew how many people were sitting down. It was a whole different world then. I mean, more than once, we'd have the place absolutely ram-packed. I know in the days when I used to stand on the Kop, I look back now and I wonder how on earth we got away with it. But, you know, that space used to hold 28,000 people standing like sardines. Nothing you couldn't. You know, and twice in my time standing on the Kop, I went home with cracked ribs. Ended up going to the doctor to get bandaged up. It just doesn't bear thinking about. Nobody worried about health and safety then.
It's desperate, yeah. So just to go back even a bit earlier than that, George, can we maybe do a bit of background to what it was like for you growing up and in your childhood?
Yeah, I lived actually not far from where we live now, in Walton. We used to live halfway between Walton Hospital and Walton Jail, and I went to school locally. My parents were both from Liverpool. My mother came from uh, Luxmore Road, which is right next door to Goodison Park, strange to relate. And my dad came from a family of, well, basically they were dockers, but the family had bought a little tobacco shop down near the docks, and that shop was there for a long time after that. I think he was there for about 20 years after he died. But my dad was an athletic guy. He was a big strapping centre forward, had a trial for Liverpool. Actually, it's nearly 100 years ago now since he was doing that. 100 years ago from now, my dad would be playing for Liverpool schoolboys. And not long after that, when he left school, he was the area heavyweight boxing champion in what used to be the old Docks Red Triangle Club. And you see pictures of the place now; it's amazing. And obviously, with the shop being down near the docks, it was in the area being bombed night after night in the 40s, but they survived, and I used to go there down there every week to get a bar of chocolate from under the counter because there was rationing going on, and my auntie who ran the shop used to save a bar of chocolate for me, which is a big treat. Probably done me no good in the long run, but anyway, it was good at the time. And I say my dad had been a Liverpool fan since he was, well, I suppose ever since he could remember. He went there, he had his space on the cop every week until he was ill with arthritis, and he just couldn't do it anymore, which was very sad.
You mentioned off air that you have an Irish connection as well, don't you?
Yeah, my grandfather on my mother's side came from Coleraine. I never met him because he died 10 years before I was born. I don't remember any of my grandparents because my parents were in their late 30s when they had me, and they were both the youngest children of big families. So by the time I was, 7, 8, 9, all my relations were passing on. And one of my grandmothers lived till I was about 18 months old, but again, do not remember her. It's a weird situation. But it's given me a different aspect to my own children and their family, because I've always encouraged them to keep, close to each other and not have any fallouts or whatever. They're very proud of ourselves as a family. And, we've raised 3 great kids, and now we've got 9 great grandchildren who are all not her. Did I say great grandchildren? I'm getting behind myself there. No, we've got 9 wonderful grandchildren who are all different characters in their own right. And again, we love them all with, right through to their bones.
Very good. So you mentioned in previous podcasts there, George, that growing up, Liverpool that you grew up in was kind of ravaged by sectarianism, wasn't it, at that time?
Yeah.
And Liverpool were the Protestant club at that moment in time. Everton were the Catholic club.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. Well, I know it was a given when my dad was young. If you were Catholic, you followed Everton. If you weren't, you followed Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
And that attitude still prevailed when I started going, when I was in my teens. And at some stage, it just sort of disappeared out of the equation. I don't know particularly why, but it's one of those things that over a period of time ceased to matter. Nobody asks the question anymore. You pick a team and you go and follow them.
Yeah.
Because you want to follow, not because you think you should, which is great. Obviously, it's still a problem in Glasgow, but I get the feeling it's not as big a problem as it was, although it's still very heated in Glasgow when they have derby matches. Of course, they haven't had them for, well, not in front of a crowd anyway, for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But it's nice that the way things are now. Our Liverpool Football Club is a worldwide family now, and obviously we've got people of all religions, Christians, Muslims, Catholics, Protestants, you name it. We've probably got it in the squad.
Yeah, which is no harm, as you said. It's
wonderful to see.
Yeah, I suppose just like growing up as a Protestant in Liverpool, like would you taken part in the Orange Marches type of thing on the 12th of July?
Oh no, they were far too right wing for the likes of me. They were going out. I mean, we were aware of the Orange Marches. Obviously, it was July the 12th was a big day in Liverpool. It's not so much a big day anymore, but we see the marches, and because from where I lived, even getting to school, on July the 12th, you'd have trouble. The buses would be held up, whatever. And then when I was old enough to work in the centre of Liverpool, had the same thing. You'd be the centre of Liverpool, and there'd be marches and traffic would stop, and then later on they'd all pile on the train and go off to Southport for the big day out, and in the evening you'd have the opposite problem because people would be trying to get home to Liverpool on the train. It was a big thing. It was, I say, it's sad looking back. It's crazy the way that the city was divided like that. It's this city has got more to it than that.
Well, I'd imagine just like Glasgow, the Irish influence probably played a big part in that with the large numbers of Irish immigration. So,
yeah. Well, as I say, what you said before, they used the word Celtic, and that's it. The Celtic tradition is strongly family oriented, and that's why Liverpool people are like they are. We're one big family, and that's obviously at the moment there's this thing going on. A lot of Liverpool fans refuse to support England in the Euros because they think, we're Scouse, we're not English. But I don't like that. I mean, I'm English. You can tell by my accent. I was born in England, of English parents, grew up in England. I speak English. Who am I going to stick up for? I wouldn't live anywhere else but Liverpool. But conversely, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else than England. It's part of the place, but it's because of what's happened over the years, with Hillsborough and whatever. I think it's obviously brought the city together in more ways than one, and we're a very resilient people. We've had a lot to put up with from the media and the government, obviously, over the years. So I think that's brought us all together.
Well, I'm sure if Jordan Henderson lifts the European Championships for England, it'll put a few smiles on a lot of those people as well, So there's that element.
Absolutely. Obviously, I'm old enough to remember 1966, and when Liverpool, England won the World Cup, and the whole country was just party for days after that. It was such a great day. And everybody was happy. I never heard of anybody saying, "Oh, I didn't want to win that," or "I don't care." Or whatever. Everybody was sticking behind their team. It'd be nice to see that happen again.
And that was a very good year for Liverpool clubs as well, wasn't it? Because if I'm correct, Liverpool won the league and Everton won the FA Cup in '66.
That's right. This city was the centre of the universe around that year. We had. Because that was the height of Beatlemania, Merseybeat, and I say the great day. We had the Charity Shield between the Cup winners and the league champions at Goodison Park. Remember that now. I couldn't get a ticket for that for love of money, and of course on the day, the FA Cup, the league championship trophy, and the World Cup were paraded around Goodison Park. It's always annoyed me that I've got a lot of pictures that I treasure, me holding various trophies. The European Cup, obviously, the World Club Championship, which is something I treasure, and the FA Cup, League Cup, Super Cup, everything. I'd love just once to get my hands on the World Cup, just to say I touched it. There's nothing like it. It's a magic moment when you get your hands on one of the those trophies. All you've ever seen before is on the TV. It's an amazing feeling.
Given the recent drought, it's quite bizarre to hear of so many trophies were inside Goodison Park at the same time. So that makes it even more.
Yeah, you said that. I couldn't possibly comment.
So, when you were in school, you had a couple of schoolmates, maybe not the same year as you, who went on to become quite illustrious.
Yes.
In the music industry.
I'll say the rule in a senior school was that at lunchtime, if it was raining, you came inside the school, you got a book and went and sat in the big hall and read. My friend and I used to sneak off downstairs to they had science lecture rooms in the basement level, and we more than once we'd sit there and watch these big lads with guitars practicing their chords. They were just literally just getting into it then. And one was called George Harrison, another one was called Paul McCartney, and there was a few other famous people around the place. A guy called Peter Sissons, who worked for the BBC, who sadly passed away recently. He was BBC's #1 newsreader for quite a while, and he was our head boy. And there were a few other guys who went on to make a living in music, and 2 or 3 people at the school who went off with the Beatles, be their road manager, press manager, all that sort of thing. And it's not to mention Paul McCartney's younger brother, Mike, who had quite a successful career.
There was a funny part in your book you mentioned about the teacher who kind of scolded.
Oh yeah,
Paul McCartney.
Mr. Edwards, yes. Poor devil. I know. I went out with his niece for a short while, and I remember heard the story so many times. Mr. Edwards, geography teacher, came in from lunch one day, and there was a young lad sitting at his desk on his own, again practicing the chords on his guitar. And Edward said to him, "McCartney, put that thing away, it'll never get you anywhere." And obviously that line has been thrown at him so often over the years. Everybody who meets him, and I mean the headmaster at the time was a real dragon. He was not a nice man, but I've heard stories from the teachers that have got out over the years that he quietly was very proud of McCartney. And eventually, when Wings were just starting out, Paul McCartney was home in Liverpool doing a concert. In fact, he did 3 nights of concert at the Royal Court Theatre. And for his sound check, he got all the boys from the school down to the Royal Court Theatre with their teachers. We got to meet some of his old teachers, and the guys who were there then were just so proud to be associated with the name. And now, obviously, our old school is now being bought by Paul McCartney. It's now the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts, and I go in there quite often. At least I did before COVID. And what Paul and his crew have done to that place is fantastic. They've got state-of-the-art kit, and the people who are educated there, the musicians, technicians, sound managers, agents, that sort of people, they're all doing really well in the entertainment industry. And that's all down to Paul. He found a building abandoned one day when he came home to visit his folks. And had a look round. He said, I just can't let that building go to rack and ruin. Went off, bought the place, and then found people who shared his vision. And what's happened is fantastic. You know, it's just a pleasure to be associated with it.
Music was always a main passion for you, George, wasn't it, growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, you know, looking back over the years, I was always into my music. Obviously, I'm a baby boomer. I was born just after the war, so I was the age when, you know, all of a sudden rock and roll came along. You know, obviously the Beatles and that lot came along, and records became cheaper, and 7-inch singles came out, easier to handle. And the city of Liverpool was just like it is now in a lot of ways. There were little music venues everywhere, and everywhere there was a church hall or, you know, a coffee bar, and people would be playing music. I mean, I belong to a youth club which is not far from where I live now. And one Christmas, I think it must have been 61, might have been 1960. I can't exactly remember, but we decided to have a dance, you know, just before Christmas, and there was £8 in the kitty, so we booked a band called the Undertakers, and I remember they were very good. They were a great band of that era, and I remember somebody saying to me, "What a pity! If we'd had £10 in the kitty, we could have got the Beatles." And we, at that stage, we could have done it. Just, you know, if I'd known then what I know now, I would have gone and, you know, mug somebody for the other £2. It's,
had a whip around or something for the extra £2.
Yeah.
Like, in your book, it was great to read about the joy the 1965 FA Cup brought to your dad.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Following Liverpool for so many years. I remember one of the years they couldn't get the ticket in 1950 against Arsenal.
Yeah.
And then just to finally win the FA Cup, I'd say it completed his life, I'd say, did it?
That's right. Yeah, he was in a terrible state. He had really bad arthritis, and he was sat in his chair with his walking stick, and in pain. And when we won that cup, he turned to me and he said, "Son," he said, "this is the greatest day of my life," and he meant it. I mean, my poor mother had died by then, but I think she would have appreciated what he was saying about, you know, being such a devoted Liverpool fan, and all the years he'd been waiting to see Liverpool win the FA Cup. That was all he wanted in life. He'd seen them win the league a couple of times. But as I say, late Ian St. John scored the winner that day, and it was several years later, 40, nearly 50 years later, that Ian St. John was at one of our social events, and he presented me with a silver salver when I just passed 40 years working for Liverpool. And not long again after that, I was comparing at a dinner in Liverpool, and I had a little speech to make. Ian St. John was at the table looking at me, and I said to him that he'd made my dad's life complete. He made the greatest day of my dad's life, and now having him present this little trophy to me was the greatest day of my life. And it was just nice to see the circle completing.
Yeah.
But you know, you can't buy memories like that. You really can't.
Yeah, and obviously he passed away recently enough as well. So hope he's at peace
Saints,
now.
yes, that was a terrible shock. Obviously, he'd been ill for a while, but he put on a brave face throughout, and he was still had a twinkle in his eye. He was always had a smile on his face. You know, he's a lovely, lovely man. And obviously, for me, having been a fan when he was playing, to get to know him, you know, I did a couple of programs on LSC TV with him, and I did several dinners with him over the years, and just to sit and talk to him, man to man, as equals, was just unbelievable for somebody like me, and Liverpool fan from when I was knee high to a grasshopper.
Yeah, incredible. Would he have been your favourite player, George, the time we went to Anfield?
He was up there. I mean, people say, who's your favourite player? And I say, well, I've got 3 kids. You're not going to ask me who my favourite child is, because it's impossible. But, you can think that some greats. Ian St. John was one of the greats. I saw Billy Little play a couple of times. I've heard people of that generation saying he was the greatest. I've been lucky enough to see Kenny Dalglish's entire career. I wouldn't swap Kenny for anybody I've ever seen anywhere, and I've seen them all. I'm old enough to have seen Pele play in the '66 World Cup. Obviously, I've seen Messi at Anfield a couple of times. Johan Cruyff, I saw 3 or 4 times in the flesh. And as I say, I wouldn't swap Kenny for any of them. I mean, that Kevin Keegan started the same day as I did. He was playing for Liverpool. That was his first game, my first game at Anfield. But when he went, we thought the end of the world had come here. We didn't think we'd cope without Kenny. But Bob Paisley knew what he was doing. He went up to Glasgow with the club checkbook, came home with Kenny Dalglish. You just can't beat that. I was talking to a guy called John Keith on Monday. I had lunch with him, and he wrote Bill Shankly's biography and Bob Paisley. And he says Bob was a genius, and he was the quiet genius. He was just so laid back and quiet, and just got on with his job and didn't say much. But when he said something, you listened, and you knew he was right. He never failed. And obviously, the silverware he got in his short spell as a manager was fantastic.
They certainly got value for Kenny from that signing.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, what did we pay for Kenny? 400,000 quid. What would he be worth now? Zillions. It's just, and again, somebody asked me about a German TV crew came to me just before lockdown last year, and we were talking about Jurgen. And I said Jurgen Klopp is the only manager we've had in my time that is fit to stand shoulder to shoulder with Bill Shankly. And then I was saying to my wife later, I didn't mention Kenny at all, but then you think of Kenny, he's not just a manager.
Yeah.
He was a terrific manager when he was managing the club during his 2 spells. He won silverware, highly respected by everybody. But he wasn't just a manager, he was the great player. And then around Hillsborough and a long time after that, he was such a great humanitarian. The things he did for the families of the bereaved and the families of the survivors as well were just unbelievable. He went to so many funerals. It nearly finished him off. He was going around a twist when it was all over. It just had so much pressure. And now, of course, he's a club ambassador. And again, he's, on the quiet, he does things for people. He doesn't, he never kicks back. If you say to him, can you do this for me? And he said, yeah, no problem. If he can do it, he will do it. He's loved and respected by everybody. They call him the king, and it's easy to see why.
He's a lot of respect for you as well, George, as he showed.
Yes, that I don't know if you've seen the clip from Channel 4 TV over here a couple of weeks ago. I mean, that was amazing. As I said to the interviewer at the time, I didn't think things could get any better in my life, but that takes the biscuit. That really does. That Kenny saying so many nice things. And then just when I got over that, Jürgen pops up on the screen and starts saying much the same. It's one of those moments, you take me outside and shoot me now, because life isn't going to get better than that.
That's outstanding. Like he described you in the foreword to the book as part of the brickwork,
Yes.
Liverpool Football Club, which must have been a fantastic feeling to hear that. You know,
it was unbelievable, because I mean, years before that, the day I turned 65, I went out with my family for a meal, and while we were out, my phone was making a lot of noise, and I was trying to be polite and not look during the meal. But when we were coming home, I just had a quick look, and there was lots and lots of text saying, "Wasn't it great what Kenny said about you?" And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? But
yeah,
what I discovered, he'd done his weekly interview on LSC TV, and the interviewer had said, before we finished, have you got a message for George, who turns 65 today? And that was when he came out with the phrase, he said he's part of the history and traditions of this place, and it'd be more relevant if he left than if I left. And I was sat where I'm sat now in front of my laptop, and I watched this interview. Then I watched it again, and another couple of times. Then I called my wife upstairs. I said, just come and listen to this. It's just unbelievable. I've said to a few people in the last few weeks to it, I wonder sometimes if I'm going to wake up in a minute, this has all been a wonderful dream. But it's things like that. You literally can't beat them.
No, that's incredible. Like the memories, you can always say that, so you can always say, and you can't buy those moments, and the memories.
No. Absolutely priceless.
So just getting on to where they all began at day one. So how did it come about that you ended up in the public address box at Anfield? How did you manage to get the job?
Well, my wife had been telling this story, but it's true. When we first got married, she had a hairdressing business in Liverpool. So she used to work Saturdays, but she used to come to midweek games with me. And one night in April 1971, we were at the ground, and the guy who was on the tannoy then, as it was, he made a bloomer. I forgot what it was he did. He did something stupid. He was prone to doing daft things, and I was touching and thought, oh, that's embarrassing. And she just looked at me and said, it's all right for you standing down here, but you couldn't do any better. And it was like a red rag to a bull. I went home and a good old typewriter, I wrote to Peter Robinson, and a very long letter, but it boiled down to, why don't you give me a try? I can do better than that. And apparently my letter landed on his desk at more or less the exact same moment they decided to give this other guy the elbow. And I went in to see Peter, had a long chat, and he decided to give me a tryout. And 50 years later, on August the 14th this year, I will have been sat there for 50 years. If you told me then where I'd be now, I would have said you were crazy, but here I am, still there.
You shared a debut with another famous man as well, didn't you?
Yeah, Kevin Keegan. We paid £35,000 for Kevin. Nobody had ever heard of him. But on the day, he'd been training so well during the week, the Shanks decided he was up to playing in the first team for his first game. And I remember somebody coming in behind me and looking over my shoulder and said, that new kid's a bit of a tiger, isn't he? And that was Kevin. He was terrific bloke. He'd run through a brick wall for the team. He was one of the generation who would run through a brick wall for Shankly. They all loved him. They all felt like he was a surrogate father to them. But Kevin in particular. And then suddenly he was he'd appreciated how he got to he was and how lucky he was, and he put his heart and soul into everything. He'd been a football fan all his life himself. If there was a kid looking for an autograph, Kevin wouldn't go past him, he'd stop. And I know more than once I'd seen him get stuck in a crowd, and he could have just got away, but he wouldn't go until even one of the little kids who was trying to get something signed would get it signed. That's something I admired in people like that. No side to him. He was as good as you find him. I saw him at Brian Hall's funeral a couple of years ago, and I hadn't seen him for years before that, but I collared him and I said, "You won't remember, but we started the same day." And he said, "Oh yeah, I remember." And then we went away, and a couple of minutes later he came over and he said to me, "Hang on, you're still there?" And I said, "Yes, Kevin, I'm still there, but I think you did better out of it than I did." And off we went. I haven't seen him for a while. Mind you, through the COVID couple of years, I don't think I've seen anybody much. I'm looking forward to meeting up with a lot of people after it's all over.
Absolutely. And what would you say are the main differences in the box that you're in compared? I'd imagine it was a very different setup in 1971.
Oh, completely. When I started, I was on the old TV gantry, which was suspended underneath the roof of the main stand. And I always say it was cold, it was dirty, it was miserable. But on the other hand, it was right in the middle, almost over the halfway line, had a great view, and you got the feel of the place more than I do now. As you know, I'm now in a nice little room in the corner of the Kenny Dalglish stand on the Cop. It's really comfy. I've got TV monitors all over the place. I don't carry tons of vinyl anymore. I've got everything is on memory sticks. Just reach forward. That's the music from the last home game. I carry a copy of that and another backup. But the box I'm in now, the glass is about that thick. It's sometimes there's a crowd and you can barely hear the noise. It's not because they're quiet, it's because the soundproofing is so good. But I know over the 20 years I've been there a few times on big games, we've had people in the seats behind our room, or behind and above, banging their feet on the floor. But I remember the Barcelona game a couple of years ago. I actually thought the place was going to fall off off the Kenny Dalglish stand. The row was incredible, and the whole building was vibrating. I'd never done that before. Obviously, it hasn't since, because we've had mainly empty stadiums. But, as I say, it's nice and comfy, but the view isn't anywhere near as good. Although it's much more comfy than the old place. So you pay your money, it takes your choice.
Good. You mentioned Shankly a while ago. There was one occasion where you incurred the wrath of Bill Shankly.
Oh yes. Everybody incurred his wrath once. I've not been there long. It must have been 1972. We were vying with Leeds for the league championship. And I was at Anfield one night watching a youth cup match, and Leeds were playing away to Huddersfield. Leeds were at the top of the table, Huddersfield were rock bottom. And halfway through the first half, Peter Robinson rang through and said, Huddersfield are beating Leeds. If you get a break in play, announce it to the crowd, will you? So next time the ball went out of play, I turned on the PA, I announced the score, and a big roar went up from the crowd down below me in the main stand. And then halfway through the second half, Peter Robinson rings through again. he said, "Listen, Leeds are winning now. In the interest of fairness, you better announce that next time the ball goes out to play." So it did. There was a big groan from the crowd, and I thought no more about it. But when I went downstairs to hand in my keys after the game, the girl on reception desk said, "Leggett, run, the Shanks is after you." I thought, "Oh my God." And apparently he'd been wandering around looking for me. And say, "Where is he? Where is he? He ruined the atmosphere, ruined it. I'll kill him. I'll kill him." And I think I actually broke the world 100 meters record in my car that night and got away. But that was a Wednesday night, and the following Saturday we had a home game. I got to Anfield, parked up, walked in. Who's the first person I see? Bill Shankly. And I thought, I'm dead. We just looked up, "Hey, afternoon, son," and just went on what he's doing. But apparently he was like that with everybody. He'd blow hot and cold. But, I'm glad I didn't actually catch up with him that Wednesday night, because he was in the mood to rip me limb from limb.
Even though you're only following orders, and it seems.
Oh, yes, it's a lot of these things. I'm the one who has to voice these things. So I'm the one, I get the blame for everything.
Yeah. And that's we're going to come to later on. There are times your job hasn't been made easy as well, which we're going to discuss in a while there. Another time you incurred not so much the wrath of a Liverpool manager, but the wrath of the crowd was when Roma came to Anfield.
Oh, yes.
2001. You want to tell us about that?
Yes. Well, somebody had suggested to me that since we're playing Roma, playing a Arrivederci Roma sometime would be appropriate. And if you listen to the song, it's very complimentary. It says, basically, it's saying that we look forward to seeing your beautiful city again soon. But of course, I bunged it on at the end, and I always used to bung something quiet on at the end while the crowd drifted away. And that night, it caused ruckus. The cop, to a man, fell about laughing. Well, I got downstairs, and the guy on the door of the press room stopped me going in. He said, "Don't go in there. You're going to be in trouble. Just go home quick." And apparently, the press boys had been going on to Gerard Houllier. Did he think it was funny playing that music at the end? And he came out with another classic phrase. He said, "I only picked the team, not the music." But apparently Fabio Capello was infuriated. The Italian press were infuriated. Yeah, the guy in charge of ground safety was accusing me of trying to start a riot. I believe the match commander was blazing, the senior policeman, everybody. But the following morning, I rang the match commander to apologize. And he said, "No problem for me." He said, "I was only saying to somebody, what a nice piece of music." Okay, so then I phoned Gerard Houlier's secretary. I said, "I'm awfully sorry I got him into a bit of hot water," to say there was no malice intended. And then messages started coming from Italy. The Guardian had a headline, "Italian Fury." And I was fearing for my life. And tell you what, I still haven't been back to Italy since. I'm not likely to either. I keep hearing rumours about the mafia in Rome have still got me down on their files. And I know Fabio Capello still helps me. So, not that I'm likely to see him again, but if I saw Fabio Capello coming, I'd turn the other way quick.
It must have been awkward when he was England manager for a while then.
Yes. That's my I'm just trying to keep my head down, do what I've got to do, and go home. It's quite a good policy in my life.
Very good. The best atmosphere I personally experienced at Anfield was a Liverpool Roma game in 2018. This Champions League semi-final, the 5-2.
That was something.
It was incredible experience. Like the Liverpool gave an exhibition for that first hour. The 2 late goals made it a bit tense near the end. You're just worried about going out to Rome with conceding 2 away goals, but the atmosphere, that was incredible.
It was amazing. I just think there's a combination of things. Obviously, as you say, the level of football that Liverpool played. We forget that was Alisson in goal for Roma as well. He conceded 7 goals to us in those 2 games, and we still went out and bought him, which was great. But that was one of those magical nights. A combination of things, including the fact that Jurgen was in charge, and Jurgen on his own can generate an atmosphere. But the way things fell out, I was doing my best before the game to make a bit of noise, which I succeeded in doing. The team were on fire. Jurgen, had them really wound up to the skies, and it was great. And as you say, the 2 late goals just took the edge off it, because we were going home thinking 2 away goals. If they win 3-0 away, when we go to Rome, they'll go through in spite of what we've just done. But obviously, in the end, we did the business, and we scored a couple in Rome, and we went through. But,
I think that night, had we known that Roma would score 4 goals in Rome, we would have been fearing the worst.
Yeah.
But,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's,
but it was just the way
it's insane.
It worked out okay. But obviously, what also brought that night down, as well as the 2 goals, was I was getting texts on my phone asking, was I okay?
Oh, yes.
Because there was news. We only found out after the game that what happened to Sean Cox when he was assaulted by the Roman ultras, and a deplorable act,
It was sad as well as infuriating, because sometimes things get out of hand. People have arguments which build into fights and turn into brawls. But that night, the Italians who hurt Sean Cox had come deliberately to start trouble. They came down a road that wasn't usually used by away fans. It's road at right angles to Lower Breck, where the stadium is. They weren't wearing colours, and they were really well organised. And I don't understand why people would want to do that. I understand if I was standing on the Kop and somebody hit one of my kids or a friend to the side, I'd want to go and defend them. But I wouldn't turn up to a game looking specifically to harm another human being who just happened to be there. And I've never been able to get my head around that. And it's, to be fair, there used to be a lot of problems in English football, and I think there are certain countries around the continent where it's still prevalent. That in Eastern Europe, I think it's more likely to happen. The further east you go in Europe, the more likely you are to have organised crowd trouble, which is, it's very sad. People say it's an education thing, but I don't think these people could take in any education. I think that it's just the way they are, and I think I say I just don't understand. I like to quiet life. Including football. I like to go to Anfield, do what I've got to do, and go home again. I don't see the object of all the fighting and the hassle.
Sean Cox had a tribute game for him the following year in the Aviva in Dublin, and we had the Republic of Ireland 11 versus Liverpool 11. Kenny Dalglish and McCartney. And I went up to it. It was close to my heart. seeing as I was at that spot where it happened 15 minutes earlier, so I kind of felt kind of a connection, I thought it was interesting. John Aldridge scored the winner from a penalty at 61. And the following night, we went to see Ricky Tomlinson do a cabaret show in the Hampton Court Hotel in Ballsbridge, and it made me think there must be something in the water with Scouts, and even yourself, you're as well, still going strong, so you've made a strong stuff, Liverpool.
Oh, absolutely. Oh. You've got to be.
There's a pub question, I think, that was asked before. Who's the man who had a gun pointed at him at 3 European Cup finals? What would the answer be to that one?
That's me. That was a trivia question on Talk Sport to start with. It was, if you told me that was going to happen during my career at Liverpool, I would have said you were crackers as well. It was just a series of misunderstandings and coincidences. At Paris 1981, the club flew me over to Paris, but I was told that when I checked into my hotel, somebody from the French FA would look after me. And what the French FA did was they got a pass for me to get in the ground, but they posted it to the hotel. So it turned up in my hotel the morning after the game. So on the night of the game, I had to talk my way past security. And the first outer line of security was the riot police. And there was one particular member of the CRS who was actually standing at the end of this alleyway where I had to go down to get to the stadium. And I was trying to persuade him I was supposed to be in there. And eventually he got fed up, cocked his rifle, and I had a bayonet, halfway up my nose. So I just left him to it. And then in the end, I got, managed to dodge around the back of him and a few other guys and talk my way past the gendarmes. But 3 years later, when we were in Rome, Peter Robinson phoned me up and said, UEFA want you to be in Rome, but after the trouble you had in Paris, what we're going to do, we're going to take you in on the team coach. So you come up to the team hotel in the afternoon of the game, you'll go with us. And that's what we did. That was fantastic, being on the team coach, going into the European Cup final. And all the way in, underneath the stand, the team all done up their stuff in the dressing room, went off to look at the pitch. And I said, good luck, lads. And I turned round, and a UEFA official who'd been on the coach with us collared me. He said, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going up on the TV gantry. He said, have you got a pass? I said, well, no, I haven't got a pass. That's why I was on this coach, because 3 years ago, your lot messed up my pass. So this time they put me on the team coach, so I don't need a pass. And he said, okay, hang on a minute. And he disappeared. I thought he'd just gone to check my story. But when he came back, he had one of the carabinieri with him with a gun pointed in my direction. I got out of there. And luckily, I bumped into an Irish friend of mine, Jim Kennifick, who used to look after the sponsors in those days. And he said, why are you out here? So I told him the story. And he said, here, I'll tell you what, give me your ticket and you take this. And he had a lapel badge which said, access all areas, UEFA. So I got back in again and did what I had to do.
Just about Rome, I remember Bruce Grobbelaar saying that he got stoned on the bus, the ground, and obviously play on words will say stoned, as in he weren't smoking spliffs. It was he carried for throwing rocks at the window.
I remember that. I know when I got out of the Olympic Stadium in Rome in 1984, I got onto the coach to take us to the airport. And for the first mile or two, we had to sit in the crash position. You'd head down below the window level because of it. There was all sorts of stones, bottles, everything coming our way. Luckily, they had shatterproof glass in there. We didn't have any damage.
They probably were wondering who you were as well. Maybe you're the new super sub, new addition to the squad. It's going to come on.
That would be
it led to a lot of bad blood that night. I've read Jegsy Dodd's account of what it was like in Rome in '84, and it was quite like, I remember his reaction to Alan Kennedy's winning penalty in the shootout, and his reaction was, if this goes in, we're dead. That was his reaction. Because it was literally...
I was glad I wasn't in the crowd at that point, I must admit, because they say it was not fun getting out. It really wasn't. And I mean, there's a bridge outside the Olympic Stadium. I think it was the opposite side to where I was. And they used to say that, every week without fail, there'll be away fans getting stabbed on that bridge. It's just, part of the routine. Like you and I go to a match, you want a cup of tea and a hamburger. You go to a match over there, you want, you got to have a stabbing on the way out. You think you're being shortchanged. It's awful. And Rome isn't the worst place. I mean, I never ever want to go to Napoli. You'd have to pay me a lot of money and hire me a lot of big blokes to go with me. Some of the stories I've heard, they're unbelievable. I just, again, I don't understand the mindset. I really don't.
Like, it's one thing if you have a group of friends that want to have a scrap with each other and it's organised and, they do their own thing in the corner. But just like Sean Cox, just like there with Rome, in Rome '84, you're picking on or trying to attack normal civilians going to watch a football match for enjoyment purposes, like not who aren't like-minded and are into violence. Like, do you know what I mean? It's appalling.
Absolutely. It's just so sad that people have got to be like that.
That night laid the foundation, I'm assuming, for one of the worst experiences you ever had in life the following year in high school.
Absolutely.
In the chapter of that, it's very interesting, your experience of that night as well, if you want to tell us your version of it.
Again, I was told that the UEFA wanted me there. I flew over to Brussels on the day. I didn't stay overnight. Met up with the team. We drove into the stadium. But as soon as you get out of the coach, you think this is all wrong, because the distance from the coach to the doors to the players' entrance was about, best part of 100 yards. There was no security. And I mean, there were a couple of rows of people watching the players go in. But as it happened, they were all quite friendly. But if there'd been somebody with, ideas in his brain to cause trouble, he would have had no problem there at all. You get inside the stadium, it's falling to bits. It was just so crazy. And then I'm watching the Italian fans, they were taking bricks out of the wall and they were dismantling the crush barriers. And all they wanted to do was cause trouble. But then obviously later on there was trouble. And we were getting messages in the little room where I was that they'd found somebody dead under the rubble. And then it ended to 5 people. And before too long, we were told that 39 people had been crushed. And eventually somebody from UEFA came to me to say what they decided. It was probably quite sensible to actually play the game, because otherwise there would have been 48,000 people out on the streets, out of control. But then he said to me, if anybody else comes on the pitch, the referee will abandon the game. And I said, you can't do that. I said, if somebody scores, the other lot will be on the pitch trying to get the game abandoned.
Lunacy,
and the UEFA delegate got really angry. And he said, just do as you're told. And I said, no, we've already had a bloodbath down there. I don't want to be part of another one. And then he did the same as the guy in Rome, turned around, beckons this policeman. So I've got another gun pointing at me. Then he says, do as you're told. And I said, no. I was thinking, I don't know what sort of trouble I'm going to be in now, but I just can't do that. And then luckily Phil Neal turned up and he laid into this guy, and the whole thing sort of died away. And we got through the game. Should have had a penalty near the end, and thank God we didn't get it. And I just made my escape. You'd be amazed at the speed I got up to going round the Highfield Stadium to the coach park, and we got taken straight down the airport, past all the airport buildings, right onto the tarmac and straight onto the plane. No customs, no passports, no nothing. And there were quite a few people extra on our plane. There were people sitting in the aisle who hadn't been on the plane when we flew out there. And somebody was trying to do a roll call to see who was on the plane who shouldn't be. And then the pilot put on the public address and he said, look, we've got an opportunity to go. We've got a window where I can get out of here. I suggest we just go. And we all said, yeah, let's go. And we got home in one piece, thank goodness. But not a good night.
I'd imagine your family must have been very anxious when the news came out.
Absolutely, because people forget there were no mobile phones in those days. There'd been a bit of a turmoil in my house, but at one stage after the disaster, my face appeared on the TV when I was trying to tell the crowd to calm down and get back behind the barriers. So at that point, they knew I was alive and well. And in any case, my wife quite sensibly said that there'd been a lot of people killed, but as far as she was aware, they were all Italians. So obviously, I'm not Italian, so I was in one piece. Although, having said that, I was, glad to get out of that place and get home.
Yeah, were you getting a bit of grief from the Italian supporters underneath you?
Oh yes, because obviously every time I turned on the PA, they could hear an English voice and see my face, and there were bottles and bits of all sorts flying my way. And the funniest part, it wasn't funny at the time. It was a very hot night, and I must have drunk 2 liters of Coca-Cola to cool me down. I said to one of the guys in there, "Where's the toilet?" And he said, "Well, just down that staircase." But I forgot this was this toilet was in the Juventus end of the grounds. When I get down into the gents, everybody else has got black and white scarves on, and I had I don't know what I had. I think I had a club tie on, so I just discreetly turfed it inside my shirt and just kept my head down and got out of there again. But
scary stuff, like.
Mm-hmm.
Scary stuff.
Yes, scary is it's the scariest moment of my life, I tell you. Oh dear. But as I say, love to tell the tale.
When the two clubs met again in 2005 in the Champions League quarter-final, that was a particularly stressful evening for you as well, for different reasons.
Absolutely. Because it was almost the 20th anniversary of the disaster, the city councils from both ends were determined to make it go off in peace, and they were laying it on with trowel, having civic dinners, exchanging banners and trophies and goodness knows what. Had some senior people walking around with banners with friendship messages on. And I saw the running order that night. I thought, we're never, ever going to do this, because there was so much going on between the end of the warm-up on the pitch and the start of the game. I thought, we're never going to get this in. And then even that went wrong, because the teams were supposed to be off the pitch for 7:30. And 3 minutes after that, they were still warming up on the pitch. And I was on the radio screaming to somebody, saying, for goodness sake, get them all off the pitch. We've got stuff to do. Mm-hmm. And then they got off. Somebody realised what was going on and ran on and got all the players off. And the other thing was that between the script for the night being printed on the match, the Pope died. So we had to have a minute's silence shoved into all this as well. And I thought, we're never going away with this. But in the end, we did. I was cutting bits out of the running order. I mean, we didn't announce the substitute when I read the teams out. Just saves about 30 seconds. Read the teams a bit quicker than normal. Again, read all the stuff I had to read a bit quicker than normal. And when we kicked off, we were 10 seconds late. And that's normal, any normal night. That would have been a disaster for UEFA because they're so finicky about the time. Everything has to be done to the second. I mean, I understand that there's TV people are, paying zillions of pounds for the satellite time on the TV and whatever, but that night was one night they were quite happy to get away with the 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And I know somebody rang me through and said, I don't know how you did that, but thank you. And I said, oh, I don't know how I did it either. We just don't do that again, please.
Yeah. You're kind of like a verbal punching bag for some people in ways as well. You're kind of the element where people get the frustrations out on.
Yes.
Things aren't running. Like there's been a number of times in the book you mentioned where things wrong. You were kind of the victim of miscommunication a lot.
Yeah.
Between.
I mean, yeah. I think in the semi-final that year, when the fourth official put his board up at the end, and it said 6 minutes, and I was looking at it, I thought, where on earth did he get 6 minutes from? And if there's a video somewhere on YouTube, you can actually see it happen. And Rafa is looking up and he's saying to his assistant, what did George say just then? 6 minutes. And then another 40 yards further down, there's Jose Mourinho, and he's wide-eyed. He's suddenly got an extra 6 minutes to get the goal they needed. And we got through. That was the longest 6 minutes of my life, but we got through it. And for a while afterwards, I was very nervous going out in Liverpool because a couple of people had come up to me, really irate, and say, why did you give 6 minutes? And I said, no, I didn't give 6 minutes. I only read what it says on that board. And I know one throughout when my wife and I turned around, I got back on the train and came home. It was a bit nerve-wracking, but that died out, thank goodness. People.
How stupid can people be, though? Like, you obviously are Liverpool fans. Why would you want to be giving minutes of injury time to Chelsea a chance?
People do get the wrong end of the stick, sometimes.
No, that would be the linesman or the officials, the timekeeping officials, not the
absolutely
address, But yeah, I remember you were saying in that 6 minutes that Chelsea threw everything but the kitchen sink. But at one stage, we swear you already saw a kitchen sink go through the air.
I don't know how we got through that. I really don't. Because they seemed like Chelsea had 22 men of their own on the pitch then, and they were just all over us for those 6 minutes. And but again, the final whistle comes, and just such a great relief, and the euphoria of getting to the final again after all those years of being banned out and having unlucky nights when we should have won and we didn't. And it's all of a sudden we're back in the big final.
You gave a great speech as well over the public address at the end.
Oh yeah.
Made the euphoria.
Yeah, I say I'd lost it by then, but I did actually say over the PA that I'd been coming to Liverpool for half a century. No, it must have been 45 years then. And I said, tonight has been the best atmosphere I've ever experienced in this place. Well done, lads. Let's go and win it, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it was incredible atmosphere, and until Barcelona in 2019, it was probably the best atmosphere you experienced.
Yeah, yes, it was. Somebody asked me recently, what was the difference, between the two nights, and I said, I realised eventually in 2005, the atmosphere built up over a period of time until the kick-off and then right through the game. But in case of Barcelona, the atmosphere built up very quickly. It was quite loud before the game, but people, I don't think anybody in that ground expected Liverpool to get through that night. So they weren't sort of souped up for the game. They weren't, on the edge. But then when Origi scored that first goal, all of a sudden people are thinking, aye, we're not far away now. And the atmosphere really cranked it up. And then obviously there were a couple of incidents that upset the crowd. That all helps them. And then by the end of the night, as I say, it was just unbelievable. It's so exhausting being in the middle of it. It's just unbelievable. And I said to you earlier on, my room was physically shaking. I've never known it do that before.
It was meant to be. I think was it Salah and Firmino were injured on the night.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he couldn't have written the script here. We turned up with 3-0 down. We're playing the best team in the world. 2 of our star players are crocked. There was no chance of getting through, but I think people basically came just to say they could tell their grandchildren they saw Barcelona play and maybe enjoy the football, just like an exhibition game you would. But then it all turned around, and if I close my eyes now, I can see Trent putting that ball down and walking away, then walking back and chipping it in the middle for Divock to score. And I've said to again a lot of people recently that the ball boy who gave him the ball played his part as well. He's I think in his second year at the academy now. His name is Oakley Cannonier. A great trivia question. I know I've used it in a couple of quizzes. And if you watch him, him to Trent puts it down on the spot, pretends to walk away, and he realizes that everybody in the middle is getting in position for the corner. The only person looking his way was Divock Origi, and he turned around, boom, straight to Divock, and it's in the back. And I didn't announce the goal because I thought the referee was going to say, take that again. But he didn't. And we're 4-0 up. And,
I didn't celebrate it as well myself for the exact same reason. But you were parallel. You had a bird's eye view of that, hadn't you? Like you were like parallel right in front of you.
Yeah.
That's where your box is, isn't it?
Just the way it went. I really didn't think he was going to give it, but he did. And I think it knocked the stuffing out of Barcelona. I think they were already, two gears down there because they turned up thinking all they had to do was get through 90 minutes and they were home and drive. And then, they got the runaround for all that time and they just couldn't believe it.
People tend to forget as well, but I haven't. Messi had a free kick in injury time that was quite close to going in as well.
Oh, yes.
That would have been an absolute heartbreak had it gone in. Thank God it didn't. But
yes. I mean, that was the thing. I mean, the last 20 minutes, all they had to do was get a sneaky goal and they'd be through. And when the final whistle went, it was strange because the ball was down in the corner by me. And normally you'd expect the referee to blow it when the ball is midfield somewhere. But again, just for a few seconds, I don't think people realised he'd blown for the final whistle. And then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, incredible. I would love to have been there. That Barcelona game, looking back, all other things being equal, was so important because if we didn't have silverware to show from that season, I think it would have been very hard to come back and win.
It would have been criminal. I mean, I must admit, I thought when we came second with all those points, I thought we're just never going to do this league ever again. It's, you can't get this close and lose it. And obviously, the start of the new season, everybody's on 0-0. It's not as if you've got a head start.
Yeah, 97 points, 1 game defeated in the whole season. It was,
but
look, they came back and won the league with 99 points the season after. So that's the main thing.
But I'll say, we're Liverpool fans. It's it must be somewhere in the Bible that Liverpool fans should be having kittens forevermore. You can't just go out and win a game and jump up and down and share and go off again. You have to make it difficult for ourselves every time.
Yeah, without fail. We mentioned as well about things we made difficult for you when you were in Dortmund at the 2001 UEFA Cup final against Alaves. The powers that be decided it would be a good idea for you to play. You never walk alone an hour and a half before the match.
Oh yes, that was good. They have what they call a technical rehearsal for all these big games, which basically means turning up and looking through the running order and making sure we know what to come in. But I turned up to that, and I'm looking at the running order. And I said to the guy in charge, I said, "Look, you've got us down for playing You Never Walk Alone here, but it's an hour and 3/4 before kickoff. There'll be nobody in the stadium." And again, it was just you just do what you're told. It's on the running order, okay. And then the other thing was they had the 3 German tenors, and they did a rehearsal. They were really, really top class, and I didn't know any of them, but they had a song to sing, and they got together by the side of the pitch. We each had an individual mic on a long cable, and they march out to the middle of the TV people again, all the camera angles on them. And that was fantastic. Everybody was happy, right? Let's go home and, chill out until you come back for the real game. But during the afternoon, the guys turned up in a big van with the podium for the presentation. They have these things in big bits and put it all together on the turf. But what they did, they brought all the parts of the podium and put it down all on top of the cables. So on the night of the game, when these 3 German tenors come out, they can do exactly the same things they've done in rehearsal, except halfway to the centre circle, all their cables are stopped. They're jammed under this podium. And just watching them, the TV camera were going mad, trying to change all the angles. And then they realised that what I'd said about You Never Walk Alone coming on when nobody in the stadium was right. So they changed the running order quickly, and they came and told me. I said, "Well, thank God for that. That's great." And then they went over to the guy who was running the team of Danish acrobats, the Flying Super Kids, I think they were called. And they said, "Right, change the running order. You're going on next, 5 minutes." And this guy was having kittens because he said, "Well, it takes me 15 minutes to get all the equipment lined up." And they said the same to him, "Just do as you're told." And it was chaos, absolute chaos. But when it came, obviously, when we got near the kickoff time, everything was fine. I had a minor problem. They gave me the team sheet, and I was reading the team sheet out from the team sheet in the middle of the pitch, to the crowd, and they had a big screen, and the pictures of our team were coming out in a different order to what they had on the team sheet.
Okay.
And not only that, I didn't realise I was going to be on this big screen. And if you've never seen yourself 20 feet tall the first time, you haven't lived. I can see this image. I'm trying not to look, but it's really off-putting. So I turned the other way, and I can see my wife and my daughter in the front row of the upper half of the stand, and they were sort of trying to get below the level of the wall in front of them, because you could see them looking at each other. "Oh my God, that's your dad!" and it was crazy. I mean, my son was with them, except he'd met them there, and he'd been out in town with a few of his friends. Now he left when he got near the stadium, he nipped in a bar next door for a last drink before kickoff. And it only dawned on him when he was halfway through his drink, this wasn't actually a bar. it was the lounge, the foyer of the big theatre next door. So these were people having a half-time drink in the middle of this opera, I think it was, and you get some very strange looks. We got out and went and found my wife and my daughter. It was just, just completely crazy from start to finish, and
it was one of those games. It was one of those games, wasn't it, where Liverpool didn't do anything easy again. You know, a necessary tremor. And I remember you mentioned you prophesized Gerard Houllier, having heart problems from how he looked.
Well, yeah,
that night.
Well, I had to go on the pitch to announce the rules about the golden goal, which meant that whoever scored first won. And when I'd done that, I turned around to get back to the seat, and I couldn't get back to the seat because while I was out on the pitch, all the local security people had come. I think they were police. I don't think anything, stronger than that. But they'd lined the edge of the pitch. I couldn't get back to my seat, so I went and stood behind the dugout, which was one of those curved roof things, and I was clinging on because my knees had gone to jelly. And just down to my left, I could see Gerard Houllier, and I say his face was such a strange colour. It was grey. It wasn't white. It was grey, and I felt awful. And I looked down the other end, and there was Mark Waller, who was the club doctor at the time. And I remember saying to somebody, "One of us is going to need that guy. It's either going to be me or Gerard, because I know how I felt and I know how he looked." And in the end, of course, we scored and the adrenaline kicked in, so that was fine. But what was it, October that year, that we were playing Leeds, weren't we? And that was when Gerard had his heart attack in the ground. And again, Doc Waller was by his side, and it was Doc Waller who saved his life, basically.
And it actually just clicked with me there, the night of the Arrivederci Roma.
Yes.
No, it was actually Houlier's first game back after being out sick for a few months. So he ended up.
That was a different Roma game. Yeah.
You're right. You're dead right. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. They met in Europe 2 years in a row. UEFA 2001.
Yeah,
that's right. Sorry, that was my bad.
Oh yes.
That would have been incredibly bad timing, though, if it was.
That would have been. It wouldn't have been good, but I don't think I'd still be working there if I'd done that. But again, it's the thing about playing Arrivederci Rome was it made me a bit of a hero. A lot of the crowd, because I know the following Saturday we were in Cardiff playing Birmingham in the League Cup final, and I had stuff to do out on the pitch. Did what I had to do, and I had my daughter with me. I said, "Right, let's go and find our seat." And our seat was right as far around the ground as you could get to go and find our seat. And all the way around the ground, there were scousers coming the other way, looking for their stand. And all I could hear was people singing Arrivederci Roma. And I thought, I'm going to be in so much trouble before too long. But anyway, as I say, I'm still here to tell the tale.
Cardiff was a happy hunting ground for Liverpool there for 3 years, some great games. A lot of them were heart attack stuff again, like, even the Birmingham match you mentioned there, West Ham, Arsenal should have been out of sight losing that game. And
absolutely. Well, you look back and, it's hard to find one where you didn't think you were going to have heart failure at some stage. Yeah. It's people say, it's exciting. I'd rather not be bored. And I said, well, I don't think giving another team a good hiding is boring. I mean, the Arsenal game, what year was it? We beat them 5-0, and
Roma,
4-0 up at half time. I really enjoyed that. You can sit back and enjoy the football, which is one of the reasons I like the Euros, because there'll be times when the two teams playing will be teams I've got no interest in. And I'll just be able to sit back and relax and enjoy, admiring the skill and the excitement and the colour. I don't think there'll be so much noise this year, but it'll be entertaining to watch, to say the least.
One of the things that kind of frustrated me reading the book and surprised me was how difficult it is for you to get tickets,
Oh
even
yes.
though you've been the public address announcer. Like, without dwelling in too much, you couldn't make Istanbul,
No.
Kiev, Madrid, which I think is not
Yeah,
great, to be honest. Yeah,
it's a problem I've had for years now. People assume three things about me. One is I'm bosom pals with the manager. Number two is I get 150 grand a week, like some of the players. And the third one is I get 500 free tickets for every game. No, none of that could be further from the truth, to be honest. It gets very annoying sometimes, but um, I've accepted it now. I don't know why, it's like it is, but I say, especially when Liverpool are having good runs in cup finals and things, every spring I turn into the invisible man all of a sudden. And, even up until Istanbul, of course, I was going there to work for UEFA at the finals, and when they decided in 2005 they didn't need me there, that was the end of it. And it's very sad, but I had a good run. I mean, some of the trips away, apart from the trouble I had in these places, some of the trips were fantastic. The Super Cup in 2001, that was fantastic. Just being, in a five-star hotel in Monaco, and looking out over the marina, and strolling around in the sunshine and going in the casino in Monte Carlo. I never thought of be doing things like that. So that's that's on the plus side.
yeah, it
Who
is.
knows?
You've had some great memories, but I just think it's put straight up. I think it's bad form. You haven't been looked after for the recent Champions League finals, considering
Well, no.
your history. Like, but hopefully, if we in 2022 in Istanbul again, I think
Yes.
is final. If Liverpool make it there, you might get to make it this time.
Who knows? We have to get there. I'd be quite happy next season if we get the league back again. I don't want to start another run of not being league champions.
Yeah.
And I think because we're in the Champions League, we're going to improve the squad. It doesn't need much improvement. It'd be nice to have it, a bit more depth to it. And obviously, this season has been unbelievable for injuries, an incredible amount of injuries. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, our season finished at the derby match when Virgil was crocked, and then looking back since, all these top class centre backs getting injured.
Crazy.
It's as if there's a curse on the place sometimes. But anyway,
well, we ended
start again.
Yeah, we ended the season well, in fairness, and we pulled it back somehow to get a Champions League spot. It didn't look great. With 10 games to go, so it was brilliant.
Never thought we were going to do that.
You mentioned before, at times, because you're recognisable by your voice and your voice only, you can be quite anonymous on occasion.
Yeah.
And there's been occasions where Liverpool staff haven't realised who you are, which is quite humorous.
Yeah. Obviously, there are about 3,000 people work there on a match day now. There's a lot of the older staff who are now obviously retiring and moving on, and putting their feet up. Known me for years, but there's a lot of the newer staff in particular just look at me as if I'm crazy. I mean, they at least twice a season somebody tries to chuck me out of there, and I have a routine where I just sort of take a deep breath and go, there'll be 2 minutes of added time, 2 minutes. At that point, I suddenly go, oh, now I know who you are. And that never fails to sort them out. Never.
Go on, far. That's brilliant. You mentioned in the book that Fernando Torres was a bit dismissive of you one time, so you weren't you weren't too sad to see him go.
No, he upset me, did Fernando. I mean, he looked at me as if I was something he'd trodden in. Luckily, he was with Pepe Reina. When somebody introduced me, he said, Fernando, this is George, he's the voice of Anfield. And he looked at me as if I was something he'd trodden in. And I was really annoyed. It's very, humiliating when people do it. There was no need for his tone.
He said
and
so.
Luckily, Pepe Reina was with him.
He said so.
Yeah,
he said,
just look, so.
Yeah. Dickhead.
And so luckily Pepe Reina was with him, and Fernando waltzed off, and Pepe came over and said, "Hi, I'm Pepe." We shook hands, and he said, "You've been here a few years, haven't you?" And we had a nice chat, and that made me feel an awful lot better. But I must admit, it's sad because Fernando was a terrific player. And he was really great to watch. I was really, really glad we had him at Anfield. But, that really took the shine off it, that business, the way he spoke to me. Strangely, Patrick Berger did the same thing in the week he turned up to Anfield. One of the guys that was looking after the new players introduced me in the same way. And he said exactly the same thing. So I thought, right, that's due off my Christmas card list, mate.
That's rude.
It's annoying, but by and large, most of the players we've had over the years have been really, really good to me. We have, some great conversations. Obviously, the guys who were there in the 80s and 90s, I know a lot better, because nowadays the players more or less live in their own little bubble, and they don't mix with the likes of me. They mix with people up at the training ground. Obviously, they work together every day. I know the guy who does who operates the VAR screen now. He started working up at the AXA training ground during the week, and he said the first day he was amazed. Lunchtime, and somebody said, "Oh, the canteen's in here," and he went in, and all the players were in there. He said, "Thank God, this is the players." He said, "Yeah, it's people who work here. They work here. You work here. Get your lunch." And over a period of a few weeks, he started to feel at home there. But it's, that's the way they are. But as I say, I'm still classed as part-time casual, so I don't get to mix.
I find that unbelievable as well. You're still classed as part-time casual, and having to do courses that stewards do and stuff like that. You mentioned as well. It must be frustrating.
I said to my wife more than once, I'd like to try that out in a court of law one day. But on the other hand, I've been a Liverpool fan for so long. I really don't want to go out with a bang and upset anybody. So I'll just keep that under my hat. But
it's a good line as well, the fact that, you got the job as a trial, and 50 years later you're still on trial, so.
Yeah, no, I've still not got a lot to say, the job's yours. But I think I'm just stuck there now. Turn up, do what I've got to do, and go home again.
Around Hillsborough, George, I suppose you had a couple of sons that were in the stadium that day.
Yeah, one of the sons was there. Yeah, they were with his friend. My other son was too. Well, yeah, he was too young to go. But my oldest was there. He'd be, he'd be 15 at the time. 89. Yes, he would. He was 15. I don't like semi-finals. Never have done. He wanted to go. I felt obliged to take him. But it turns out that his friend and his friend's dad wanted to go, but they hadn't got tickets. So I got tickets, gave them to those guys. So Robert went to the ground. He went with his mate. His mate's dad drove them there. And I said, "That's great. He can go. He's happy. I don't have to go. I'm happy. And he's being looked after. Dave will keep his eye on him. They'll be perfectly safe with him. Of course, it all went terribly wrong. And again, people say, I keep forgetting, there were no mobile phones in those days. And that the time between when we found out there'd been an incident and the time he got into a phone box in the hills outside Sheffield and phoned was about an hour and 3/4, I think, but it seemed like 10 days. It was the most awful waiting period of my life. Really was unbelievable. And I said, I was lucky because at the end of that time, he phoned up and said, we're safe and well on our way home. And there are 96 families who didn't have that privilege. Their children, loved ones, husbands, dads, brothers didn't come home. And this is now, middle of 2021, and nobody's paid for it. The people who were responsible haven't paid for it, and the people who could be thought of as being in a worse situation, the people who lied about it and tried to put the blame on the likes of my family, they still walking around free. They've got clean away with it. I don't know how any of them sleep at night.
After that, I suppose a month after that, losing the league as well in the most heartbreaking circumstances.
Yeah.
Against Arsenal and Michael Thomas with the last minute goal. Would you say that was your worst ever night as a fan of Anfield? Or
it probably was, looking back. But the way it happened, the fact that we were top of the league and we had to lose by 2 clear goals to Arsenal, and we thought there's no chance of us doing that. And then when they scored their first, obviously we're on the brink. We need to concede 1 more goal and we've lost the title. And late on, Michael Thomas rooting through our defence and weaving past all of them and scoring and taking the title off us was just too much to bear. I think everybody's heads went down that night, and it just, obviously apart from the Arsenal team, but somebody said that sometime during that game the Liverpool squad just literally gave up the ghost. They'd been through so much. Yeah. And that was, beyond the pale. It was just too much to bear.
It's heartbreaking. But they came back the following year and won the league anyway, so that was the, they can't up for it.
I'll tell you that. Then again, we won the league in 1990, and if somebody had said then it'll be another 30 years before you do this again, you would have said they were crazy, because we were there or thereabouts every season for some piece of silver.
Yeah, and I'd say, you said yourself, and I thought so too, in 2019, it looked like we were never going to win it again when we didn't win it that year with Man City. So it was great. It must give me great satisfaction to be there that night when they finally lifted the Premier League in 2020.
Unbelievable. Again, something I've said to a few people, just before lockdown, there was a dinner at Anfield for the international Liverpool ladies supporters. It's run by a Norwegian friend of mine. And I was there. I was doing a Q&A and I played some music. Phil Thompson was there, did the talk, and the ladies team manager and Lizzie Doyle of the Anfield Wrap Up. But the top of the bill was Peter Moore, and he gave a wonderful talk. He's an exceptional speaker. And he said that Liverpool now have 1 billion followers across the planet. That's, the more you say that, the more crazy it sounds. But he's right. There's, all over the world, Liverpool fans, followers, supporters, 1 billion of them. And that night in Anfield, there were 300 people inside the ground, and I was one of them. Didn't have much to do, but I was just so pleased to be there. And obviously, when the trophy was being presented, I moved out of my room because Sky had taken over the PA and whatever. So I moved next door and sat in the kitchen at the very end of the Kenny Dalglish stand. And I'm looking down directly at that platform, and the players all coming up and getting their medals, and a hug off Kenny, and then Jordan picking it back up. That was, again, that was a dream, absolute dream.
Especially,
just to see that thing being lit. I've got a picture of me holding that trophy, taken, I think it was 1994. I was helping Alan Kennedy run a five-a-side tournament in Southport. And at one point in the afternoon, he went off to have a wander around the pitches at the edge of the arena. And I was on the platform in the middle. And this guy turns up in the car, gets this big cardboard box out, plonks it down in front of me and said, "Where's Alan?" I said, "Oh, he's off in the distance." He said, "Well, I won't hang around. When he gets back, tell him the trophy's in there." And I kept my eye on it. I thought it was the trophy for this competition we were running. And when Alan got back, he said, "Oh, it's come," as it opens the cardboard box, and there's the Premier League trophy. And I had my picture taken with it. I still got dark hair then. It shows you how long ago it was. And I'm holding this thing, and I thought, how do I get my hands on this? And I hadn't been taking much notice. If I'd known what it was, I wouldn't have moved more than an inch from it. It's but of course, there we go. 2020, and we got the real thing, and it's ours, and that was wonderful.
Have you a favourite goal, George, from your 50 years? I know it's hard, it's like asking who your favourite player is. It's impossible. Is there any particular goal that stands out?
Well, yes, I've got it. The obvious one now is Alisson Becker's header the other week, and it basically got us into the Champions League.
And how about in Anfield that you would have witnessed?
At Anfield, Olympiacos in 2005, when it was the same situation as Saint-Étienne in '77. We were going out of the European Cup, and Stevie G scored an absolute rocket against Olympiacos and got us back into it again. And there's a video somewhere of me announcing that goal. And it's not very often I lose it, but I lost it that night. I was screaming and shouting down that mic because I was so desperate to get back into the European Cup final, because what the club had missed out all those years. And at the back of my mind, there's another story I tell in 1985, when I was going off to Brussels. My wife and kids came to see me off at the airport, and my eldest son was behind me. And the lady doling out the tickets looked over my shoulder. And she said to Robert, "Are you going with your dad?" And he shook his head, very long face, said no. And I hadn't thought about him going to the European final because he was far too young. But the previous week, Everton had been in the Cup Winners' Cup final in Rotterdam, and a lot of his mates at school had gone to that. So when it comes to the big one, the European Cup final, he's not going, and he never thought about it. But then he was miffed, and I remember saying to him, "Look, I promise you, Rob, next time we'll go together." And of course, next time we actually got to the European Cup final was 2005, by which time I couldn't get a ticket for that. And he was working in, no, I'll tell you, he wasn't, he was just coming, he'd been working in California in 2001, so he couldn't get to that one. 2005, he was back home, but I just couldn't get tickets, so neither of us went to that one. It was, that was really devastating.
I suppose you made up for it in Athens in 2007, even though the results didn't match.
Yeah, well, 2007, the two of us went together And it was such a great week away for father and son, and it took us a week because we he lives in Crawley. So what I had to do, I had to go down there on the Monday by train. Stayed with him on the Wednesday. We flew. So hang on, yeah, Monday I went down to Crawley. Tuesday we flew from Gatwick to Sofia, where we had a hotel for a night. Wednesday we flew to Athens, went to the game, stayed in somebody's flat we'd borrowed overnight. Thursday flew back to Sofia, and then on the Friday we flew back to Heathrow. We didn't even go back to Gatwick, went to Heathrow. On the Saturday I came home, and I say for weeks after that, I'll wake up in the morning and look round to see which way the light was shining into my room, see where I was. It took me a while. But again, it was such a great week away. That's sad about the result. It was very infuriating the way UEFA handled that. It was an absolute mess. But
or people with tickets couldn't get in and stuff. Yeah, I remember reading about that.
There was my younger son had got a ticket on his season ticket, and he flew out. He got the last plane out of Liverpool John Lennon Airport to Athens, and we were inside the stadium by then. We'd seen the chaos outside, and I phoned him and said, "Look, when you get to Athens, get your coach down to the ground and go straight in. Don't hang around. Don't go for a drink. Just as soon as you get there, get straight in and be careful that there's no sort of system of checking tickets here." But of course, he did. He stopped. He met an old uni friend of his, had a drink, and he was one of the people who got pepper sprayed. So he didn't see the first half because he was sitting in the back of the main stand, completely blinded. And he was phoning his wife, who was phoning my wife, and I didn't enjoy that game at all. I was more worried about where he was, but it was, I say, that was another classic piece of organisation by good old UEFA.
We mentioned about the Celtic connection earlier on Liverpool has, and in 1977 Wales and Scotland played in a World Cup.
Oh, yes.
Anfield, so it must have been great for the Welsh and Scottish people in Liverpool to have it on their doorstep.
It was a cracking night. Really, again, because of the connections. Kenny was playing for Scotland and all the rest of it. But I went to the ground very, very early in the afternoon. My wife took me. She drove me there, so I just went in on my own and left my car at home because there were so many people wandering around without tickets. A lot more people in the city than had tickets for the game. And I got inside the ground and did what I had to do. But I've still got the feelings of looking down from my box on the TV gantry and all these guys in kilts trying to climb over the turnstiles and really the worst for word. They didn't know where they were for them. And after the game, I took my time getting out. When I came out to the ground, the whole area was quiet. And I walked down the hill to the bus stop on the main road and got on the bus. There weren't many people on the bus, and I was just sitting there. And the next stop, the door opened on the bus, and this guy in full Highland regalia climbed on. "Hey, see you, Jim. Do you want your program?" He was absolutely legless. He was quite tame in the end. I don't know where he was going on that bus. I think he's just basically heading north, but the bus only got as far as the edge of town and then stopped. I think. Well, I went home. And, again, quite a night.
There's another night. Ireland played Holland at Anfield in '95. It was Jack Charlton's last game. Clivert put us out, unfortunately. Was that a good night as well?
I remember that well because some bright spark at the club said I'd forgotten that they're going to have to play national anthems. So I phoned up and said, "Has somebody got the music for the national anthems?" and they realised they hadn't got, they hadn't got any. And anyway, somebody phoned me up, so we sorted it. And when I got down to the ground a couple of days before the game, just to see what was going on, they had a cassette tape with about 20 albums of national anthems of the world. And it's physically impossible to line two anthems up like that. So I went dashing back into town and went into HMV and got the same album except on a CD. So when I came to playing it, and bang, I realised that there were two verses to the Irish anthem. I wasn't sure whether they played both of them, but luckily when we got to the end of the first, the Irish crowd had been singing along, singing their lungs out. And when they got to the end of the first verse, they all burst into applause. And so I thought, right, and we got through that one. But again, somebody hadn't thought it through. Oh dear.
Last minute as usual. Was there any moment where you slipped up was there any moment that you slipped up on the public address?
Once or twice, nothing serious. But the main thing was in 2000, we'd never announced the scorers at Anfield. It was something. It was against club policy. But 2000, they suddenly changed their mind. And the first game after I was told that, Michael Owen scored a couple of goals. I've forgotten who we were playing. Might have been Hull, but anyway, Michael Owen had scored twice. And then coming up to half time, I just reached under my desk to pick up a CD to play. Almighty Raw. And when I looked down, the ball was in the back of the net, and everybody was clustered around Nicky Barmby. So I thought it must be him who scored. I announced him as the scorer. And then come half time, all sorts of people were coming in saying, no, Michael Owen got that. And I said, well, I just didn't see it. And I announced at half time, corrected it, apologised. It's funny, I saw Michael Owen about 18 months ago at his book launch. I apologised to him again. First time I'd apologised to him face to face, but he thought it was hilarious. But I got some earache.
You have a TV in your room now to avoid that happening again, don't you? You can see.
Yes. I've got a monitor which basically is attached to every camera in the ground. So when the game is going on, I've got a live coverage of what's happening. I've also got a channel through to what Sky are broadcasting. So I see the replays on that. And obviously, apart from that, we've got two screens attached to the scoreboard and one attached to the VAR system. So it's I don't miss anything nowadays. I'm pleased to say.
There was one day where you came in and you found that you had a replacement that you weren't told about.
No, August 2000. Somebody from Radio City had persuaded the club that one of their guys, Phil Easton, should do my job for the new season, and it was agreed. But the only minor thing was nobody thought to tell me. And I turned up the first day, and there's Phil in there, and we both looked at each other and more or less simultaneously said, "What are you doing here?" And poor Phil was embarrassed because he was there with the sound engineer. As far as he knew, I'd left, but nobody had told me. And I thought, well, nobody's told me any different, so I'm just going to plow on. And there were an awful lot of reaction to that. I know because Phil's sound man was playing stuff that I normally wouldn't play. Stuff from dance music and clubs, that sort of thing. Well, I'd very rarely play that sort of stuff. And there were loads and loads of complaints during the week after that game. But they had so many in there and they had to backtrack. So I was told that in future, Phil and I would work as a team. I'd be up in my box doing what I normally do. until the last 20 minutes before kickoff, when Phil would take over at pitch side, play a couple of tunes, read the teams, and off we go. And it carried on like that until Phil died. He died a few years later. I think it was 2009. And people used to think I hated sign to Phil. He said, well, that was nothing could be further from the truth. I was a big fan of his. I used to listen to his radio program, and he was a nice bloke. And he and I did an awful lot of dinners and functions together. Phil and I, were good friends by the time he died. And the day he died, it was awful. He'd been at Anfield the previous day. On the Monday morning, I was listening to his breakfast show live, as always. I used to interact with him. I used to be talking to him, over email while he was on. And then I'd go to work. And that particular day, he did his show as normal. And apparently during the production meeting afterwards, he said, I don't feel well, I'm going home. Went home and had a heart attack and died in his chair in his living room, just like that. And I know I got the call 7 o'clock that night from his sound man, and we were all just completely devastated. But he'd gone. Peter McDowell took over and had a couple of ins and outs since, but Peter McDowell is basically now doing what Phil used to do, except I play, more of the music now.
Well, it was very mature of you. Like, I think it was very underhanded of them, the way that they brought him in and kind of expected you to get a cob on and storm out, but the fact you actually stayed and walked on showed your maturity, and
well,
it worked out.
It was just sheer bloody mindedness, really. Because I thought, well, if I've done something wrong and I got a letter or a phone call saying you're sacked, I wouldn't be happy, but I'd take it. But in this case, I'll say just nobody had thought to tell me. I believe there was a meeting where somebody said, what did poor old George say when you told him he'd left? He was leaving, and the answer was, well, I haven't actually told him yet. And somebody who should remain named was bottled out ringing me. And then somebody else said, well, when he turns up on Saturday and Phil's in his room, he'll go off in a huff. And I didn't, because I knew I was on solid ground.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, it all worked out in the end. And touch wood, still have.
My friend Tony was wondering what Operation Anfield exercise means.
Yeah, it's an exercise we do under the terms of the license we have from the City Council. We have to make sure that if there was a real emergency, everybody could get out of the stadium in a couple of minutes, literally a couple of minutes. So that's just rehearsal, and they have to do it. The place is full. If they ever announce that and they don't use the word exercise, it's the real thing. I know it happened at Aintree Racecourse. That year that the bomb threat happened, my daughter and I were standing at the side of the parade ring watching the horses go around, and I heard the PA come on, and it said, commence Operation Aintree. Well, I listened, exercise wasn't said, so I said to my daughter, come on, we're going home. She thought I'd gone crackers, but I said, believe me, I know what I'm doing, out, quick. And we went straight out and went home, and
use your experience.
I was lucky I was
right. One of the previous guests in this podcast, George, was Joe Symes and the Loving Kind, and he was example. Yeah. They're an example of a band who you have given great exposure to by playing their music at Anfield. There's been many bands, and you deserve great credit for that, for giving people an opportunity to get their music played.
Yeah, I'm very proud of some of the people I've actually given their time to. For the sake of going back to what we were saying earlier about listening to George and Paul practicing, that taught me a valuable lesson that people like the Beatles don't just suddenly appear from nowhere. the band, if a band is having a successful career, they normally work their way up, and what they need is exposure. They need airtime, and if I can give it to them, I will. It's difficult nowadays because there's so much good talent knocking about this city. It's incredible. I get so much stuff sent to me, and there's very little of it that I can just throw straight in the bin and say I'm not playing that. Very, very little. But I often end up, under normal times, I'll end up with 3 hours of music I want to play before the game, and I've got to squeeze it into 2 hours because I've got so much good stuff, and I try my best to get everybody in if I possibly can. I know there's been a few of them over the years. The Zootons, the Coddle. I was probably the first guy to give any sort of airtime to a decent-sized crowd. Joe Symes is another example, and there's been 1 or 2 bands I know for a fact I've got recording contracts out of it because there's been somebody in the business sat in the stand listening. Who's that? And following it up. And of course, there was always Atomic Kitten. People used to take the mickey out of Atomic Kitten. I was the first person to give them an airing anywhere. That was fantastic. It's funny. Kerry Katona of Atomic Kitten was on TV this afternoon. I haven't seen her for ages. Obviously, she's long since left Atomic Kitten, and they've long since broken up. But to be around, believe me.
The eclectic mix, really, of the Anfield playlist. Like, you're not pigeonholed. You really have the different songs. Like with Johnny Cash. You have. I loved last time I was at Anfield was Thunderstruck by AC/DC was a brilliant addition to the playlist as well.
Yeah.
You obviously play a big role in getting the crowd pumped at games, and I think that does set the atmosphere before the match. And you mentioned like your favorite night at Anfield, you have said was the Barcelona game, the 4-0. I'm correct in saying that, isn't it? That was your favorite game at Anfield, your best Anfield experience.
Absolutely, definitely.
And playing You Never Walk Alone in front of the Cop with the team lining up, and Imagine by John Lennon, it really added poignancy.
That was fantastic. I mean, again, that all fell together. I very rarely put You Never Walk Alone on at the end of the game, but that night it was appropriate. And as I just as they did it, the entire squad lined up in front of the Cop, and then that finished, they went off. And I was expecting everybody to just get up and go home, but they didn't. But I thought, right, and I had Imagine looking at me, banged it on, and everybody joined in. It was, a really magical moment. And I mean, 2 things happened after. I was getting messages from all over the place from people where they'd watched the game from and talking about the end of the game. And my favourite one was in Sydney Casino. He said he was Sydney Casino, 6 o'clock in the morning, and the place was full of all these big, rugged sheep farmers, and they were all in floods of tears.
Emotional.
And then the following morning, Piers Morgan called me a genius on Good Morning Britain. So I don't like it, but I thought.
George, it's been fantastic chatting with you this evening. Before you go, what's your plan for the future? What do you hope? What does it hold, would you think?
Well, first of all, to stay healthy. Touch wood, I've had my 2 jabs, that's good. I really need a break this summer, just after the last 15 months, which has been really stressful. I'm working on a follow-up book, but this summer I've got a few things to do to publicise the book. Obviously, I've been on TV a couple of times, talking to an awful lot of people, and I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. And the publishers, Atlantic, have been fantastic. They've really worked their socks off on my behalf. So I'm doing my best to keep my end up. And sometime in the next 3 or 4 weeks, the LSC TV people are making an hour-long program with me, which is going out on August the 14th, which is the actual anniversary of my first game working at Anfield. And then, obviously, August the 14th is the anniversary. Next Wednesday, the fixtures come out, so I'll write them all in my diary like normal, and keep his fingers crossed that I'm going into my second half century. But at this moment, I don't know. As I say, I should get a phone call in the next 5 minutes from the new chief exec saying everything's changed, they're not required anymore. I could, walk down the road tomorrow and get run over by a bus. I could win the Euro Millions tonight. Who knows? It's what did John Lennon say? Life is what happens when you're making other plans. So that's my outlook at the moment. The 14th of August is actually my daughter's 40th birthday. So one way or the other, that's going to be quite some day in our family.
Absolutely. The book, I'm going to include the link for it there in the video description. I read it myself. It's a belter of a book. I really enjoyed it, and it's just different. A great touch as well is for every season or every year, you have the song that was kind of very prominent in the charts for each year, and you really see the difference.
It gives people pointers. I'm glad you like that.
Yeah, no, it's great because you see the difference in music from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s up to the present day, and it's the I suppose the change in musical taste and pop culture and that. Yeah. But during that time, what hasn't changed is that Liverpool have been competitive, been successful, and you've been informing. We've been the bearer of good news and bad news at times, and on public address. But it's been more good news than bad news, as Kenny said. Yeah. And we hope for next season. We hope to have. I hope the next time I go back to Anfield, which hopefully will be the season coming, that I'll be hearing you announce the teams and that, and the correct goal scorers. Yes. So George, listen, thanks a million once again. Thanks a million for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time. I'll let you get on to watch the Euros now. So thanks a million for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Parlay with Padre podcast. Good night. God bless.
Cheers, Padre.